Good morning students. Welcome to English tutorial class. I, Saimalini Sarkar, will be taking your English tutorial class. In the previous video, we have learned about what a sentence is and the types of sentences. Let us revise once. What is a sentence? Sentences are group of words that make a complete sense. The features of a sentence are: first, it should start with a capital letter. The sentence should have a verb in it, and it should end with punctuation marks like full stop, question mark, and with an exclamation mark. Now it comes the types of sentences. There are 4 types of sentences. They are assertive or declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory. Now in this chapter, we are going to learn about parts of a sentence. Subject and predicate. Let us discuss. A sentence has 2 parts: subject, predicate. The part of the sentence that tells us what or whom the sentence is about is called the subject. The part of the sentence that tells us something about the subject is called the predicate. Let us discuss that a sentence has 2 parts. Yes, we know that. What are they? They are subject and predicate. Now, what is a subject? The part of the sentence that tells us what or whom the sentence is about is called the subject. Now, the part of the sentence that tells us something about the subject is called the predicate. Now, I think student, this is a very not clear to you, right? This is a very basic textual definition of a subject and predicate. But do you think you will be able to identify the subject by learning the definitions only? No, it is not possible, children. Now, you know it is very essential to understand the method by which you can identify a subject and a predicate in the sentence. You have to learn the method, the rule, how you can identify subject and a predicate in a sentence. Now remember, a complete sentence will always have 2 parts, the subject and a predicate. It is necessary to have 2 parts in a sentence, that is subject and predicate. Simply, a subject is that tells us about what or whom the sentence is talking about, and the predicate is that part of the sentence that tells us something more about the subject. Now, what is a subject? Subject is about what or whom the sentence is talking. The subject is about what or whom the sentence is talking. We can simply say it is the noun. And the predicate is that part of the sentence that tells us something more about the subject. The predicate is that part that says more about subject, like what the subject is doing or what it is up to. Now let us move on and learn how to identify subject and predicate in a sentence. Now, how do we identify the subject and a predicate? Can you recall? You must have done this in class 3, isn't it? We have already done in class 3 subject and predicate. Okay, let us revise. To identify the subject, we must first identify the verb in the sentence. So the first and the foremost thing that we are going to do after getting the sentence is we have to identify the verb. Now, what is a verb, students? A verb, remember, a verb is not only a doing word, but it is also a being word as well as a having word, right? So, a being word, I mean to say words such as is, am, was, were, are, will be, shall be. Those are all being words. Having words means has, have, had, will have, shall have, right? And along with the being and having words, we also have different kinds of doing words which show action. They also come under verbs, right? Action words like playing, swimming, talking, singing, they are also categorized as verbs. So we have being word, having words, and action words under the categorization of verb. So first and foremost, you must learn and you must know which are the words that must be classified as verb. So the first and the foremost thing you have to identify is the verb. You must be clear with verb, right? Now to start with, when we have to identify the subject and the predicate. Remember, in a sentence, you first need to know how to identify the subject. How do we identify the subject? First step is to identify the subject. We first have to identify the verb in a sentence. So how to identify a subject? To identify the subject, we must have to identify the verb in a sentence. So, as I have said already, that you must know which are the words that are classified as verbs. Now, once you identified the verb, you need to ask who or what to the verb. What you need to ask? Who or what to the verb. So, first when you see a sentence, you need to identify the verb. Then once the verb is identified, you have to ask who or what to the verb. This asking of question you need to do mentally. You cannot write and do it. Just mentally do it. Then the answer that you get will be the subject. So remember, in the sentence, once you have identified the verb, you ask who or what to the verb. Either you ask who or what. Now, you need to be very, very clear with this once we move on with examples. You will be very clear with this concept once we will do the examples. So, once you have asked who or what to the verb, as every question give you an answer, so will this question give you an answer too. And the answer that you will get will give you the subject of that sentence, right? Now remember students that the subject may be one word or it may be more than one word. It can be of two words and it can be a phrase, alright? Subject need not be only of one word, right? The other words in a sentence are the part of the predicate. So once your subject is identified, it is very easy to identify the predicate. Remember, the other words in the sentence that are left are the part of a predicate. And remember one more thing. The verb is always a part of the predicate, right? So, how to identify the subject? First, you have to identify the verb in a sentence. Then, by taking the verb, we have to ask the question who or what. The answer that you are going to get will be the answer of the sentence, that is the subject. And rest of the sentence, including the verb, is your predicate. So, very important thing in case of subject and predicate is you need to know which is the word or which are the words that can be classified as verbs. Once you have identified the verb in the sentence, you need to ask who or what to the verb, and the answer that you will get give you the subject. Once the subject is identified in a sentence, the other parts of the sentence is to be classified as a predicate. Is it clear to you, students? Now let's move on to the next slide. Look at the sentences given below. Let us learn with some example. How can we go about identifying the subject and the predicate in a sentence? First example is, the man donates clothes every year. So we have already discussed in the previous slide that when you have to identify the subject and the predicate in a sentence, the first thing that you have to do is to identify the verb. So in this sentence, which is the verb? Which is the verb in this sentence? The man donates cloth every year. That's right. The verb is donates. So now you have identified the verb. What do you have to do? Correct. You have to ask who or what to the verb. So I can ask the question, who donates? Correct? So my answer is the man. Who donates clothes every year? The answer is the man. So the man is the subject. And then what is my predicate? Donates cloth every year is the predicate. As I have told you, the verb donates will also be the part of the predicate. Clear? Let's move to the next slide. Many tourists visit Kolkata every year. To know the subject, we have to first identify, I told you, the verb. Which one is the verb here? Very good, visit. Now the question comes, who visit? The answer is many tourists. So the subject of the sentence is many tourists. And the rest of the sentence, that is visit Kolkata every year, is the predicate. Again, see the sentence once again. Many tourists visit Kolkata every year. The verb is visit. We can ask the question, who visit? The answer is many tourists. So the subject of the sentence is many tourists. And the predicate is Kolkata, visit Kolkata every year. Third example. These mangoes are not ripe. Which one is the verb here? Correct, are. Can we ask the sentence, who are not ripe? No. This question is not appropriate for this sentence. We can ask, what are not ripe? The answer comes as these mangoes. So, when the answer of this question, what are not ripe, is these mangoes, then the subject is definitely these mangoes and predicate are not ripe. Fourth one. The girl in the red dress stays near my house. We have a long sentence here. The sentence is, the girl in the red dress stays near my house. Which is a verb here? The verb is stays. Then we can ask who or what. In this case, we can ask who stays. The answer that we get is the girl in the red dress. Now, this of you, now you are thinking, many of you are thinking, the answer will be only the girl. You are wrong. In this case, the girl in the red dress is going to be the part of your subject. In this kind of sentences, if we say only the girl, then we are not giving the complete information. The complete information that is there in the sentence is the girl in the red dress. So when you ask the question, who stays, your answer should be the girl in the red dress. Because in the red dress is completing the subject, the girl. It is giving the full information about the girl. Because here you are talking about a specific girl who is there in a red dress. So your subject will be the girl in the red dress. And the predicate will be stays near my house. Is it clear? The boys are singing merrily. Now, in this sentence, can you tell me which one is the verb? Are? No, that is not only the verb. Then, singing. No, that also incorrect. The verb is are singing. Now, one more thing we have to keep it in mind. The verb can be of single word, two words, or more than two words. So, here in this sentence, the verb is of two words. They are singing. Now the question comes, who are singing merrily? The answer is the boys. So the subject of the sentence is the boys. Predicate are singing merrily, because are singing is only the verb in it, and merrily we need to add it. So the verb along with the leftover sentence is the predicate. Let's do few exercises. Separate. The exercise asks us to separate the subject from the predicate. The first one, the house was on fire. So the subject is the house. Predicate was on fire because the verb here is was. Now if I ask, who was on the fire? No. The question should be, what was on the fire? So the answer is the house. So the house is the subject and the predicate was on fire. Next sentence, Ronit and his sister helped their mother around the house. Tell me which one is the verb? Helped. Now the question you can ask, who helped their mother around the house? The answer is Ronit and his sister. So the answer is the subject. Ronit and his sister is the subject. Helped their mother around the house is the predicate. Is it clear to you, students? Let's see next example. We are eating dinner now. Which one is the verb? Correct, eating. Who are eating dinner? The answer is we. So we is the subject. Are eating dinner now is the predicate. Good. People are very intelligent. You have understood. Next one. The room on the top floor needs to be cleaned. Now, this is a little tricky sentence. Can you tell me which one is the verb here? Cleaned? No, dear. Cleaned is not the verb. Here the verb is needs. So if I ask you, what needs to be cleaned? The answer is the room on the top floor. If you give the answer the room, the sentence will be incorrect. The subject is not complete. The subject is telling the full information is the room on the top floor. Which room needs to be cleaned? The room on the top floor. So the subject is the room on the top floor. And the predicate needs to be cleaned. Let's have a quick recap. We have to keep it in mind that every sentence consists of two parts. They are subject, predicate. What we say about the subject is called the predicate. The name of the person or thing we speak about is the subject. By taking the verb, we can ask the question who or what to find out the subject. Now students, the most important thing you have to keep it in mind is, if you get a sentence, the first and the foremost thing you are going to do is to take out the verb from it. Then the next step is, by taking the verb, you have to ask the question who or what. The answer you are going to get is the subject. And the rest of the sentence, including the verb, is your predicate. But there are few instances where the subject is not completed unless and until you take the whole information regarding that. Then the subject will be completed. For example, just now we have seen the room in the first floor needs to be cleaned. So the full information is the room in the first floor. This is the subject. Needs to be cleaned is the predicate. Thank you, student. I hope this class was a fruitful one for you. You have learned how to identify subject and predicate, isn't it? Till then, please practice the work, go through the slides, try to take separate or take out subject and predicate by yourself. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you, friends. Bye bye.